Today's video is going to be the second in my finial videos. The first one went through the basics of producing a standard finial from some scrap wood, and I'll put a link up here or up here, wherever it appears, for you to look at that should you so wish. Today's video is going to be using a piece of sapele, which is a nice hard wood, which leaves nice crisp edges and corners should you so make them on there. A few things to consider before going into making a finial is what it's going to be used for. If it's to adorn the top of a box or a hollow form, which isn't going to get much use regarding touching, then you can go finer and thinner and longer without much fear of it getting broken. However, if it's going to be a finial on a lid of a box or indeed a hollow form that's going to be used fairly regularly, it needs to be a lot more robust. You can still put some nice form and curves in it, but it needs to be of a thicker nature to withstand constant usage. A couple of things to consider. Before we go over to the lathe, I would just like to mention I will put a link to Cindy Drozda's channel, because she, as I have said before, is the epitome of fine finial making, and you will benefit by watching her and her methods as well. So I'll put a link down below in the description. So we'll go over to the lathe now and we'll start doing a finial. Okay, I've got a piece of sapele which is about 7 inches long, which is 180mm, about 1.25 inches square, which is 30mm, and I've got about 1 inch in the jaws, and I'm using my long nose or O'Donnell jaws, and it should give us about 5.5, 6 inch, 140mm, 150mm long finial maximum. So what I have to do now is to get it to round, and I'll just use spindle roughing gouge and we'll get it to round and then start turning the finial. Now, one thing to remember is whatever you do on the end, when you've done what you think you want, it's difficult to go back to alter the shape. Yep, that's okay. So I'm going to sand this piece up now, and I'll come back. While you're working towards the headstock, you're getting support for the mass of wood between where you're working and the chuck. And then as you get thinner, you need to support and do about 1/2 inch at a time and work on the shape you want or the lines you want. A bit of sanding now, starting off with 240, supporting the work, and you can do a little bit of refining if you want to refine some curves. Sanded up now to 320, and there was a little ridge there that I wasn't happy with. The transition wasn't really smooth enough, so I played about a bit with the sandpaper. Don't be afraid to just refine it with your abrasive, because there's no shame in that at all, just to get it as you like. So from this part up now, I shan't touch sanding wise. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to work on the bottom to the base, and then the finial, as far as shape is concerned, will be finished and sanded. So that's how it'll end up looking, and I'll do a tenon on the bottom, and then that'll be ready for a future project. So I'll just sand this up. Before I finish this off, a little tool a la Captain Eddie Casteline. It's just a wrench or a spanner. This is a 3/8, one of my old 3/8, not metric. So I got a 3/8 drill bit, so I can size the tenon to that, and then when I drill the hole it'll fit nicely and snugly, and in actual fact I've got several different sizes that I use, and you just sharpen on the grinder that edge there, so it's a scraping situation. Bring it down. I brought it down a bit with my small parting tool, and then it, and that's down to that size. We've got the finial finished and sanded. Now what I would normally do is put sanding sealer on it and apply a wax finish. Now if you would want to make it a black finial, you can do that. Ebony is a very expensive wood, as is African blackwood. So you can actually do the following, and this will give you a very good alternative to using the expensive woods. So what I'm going to use This is a chestnut spirit stain and it's black, so I'm just going to use a paintbrush and apply it to the whole finial. Okay, so I've put on 2 coats of spirit stain, a black spirit stain. Now I shall let that dry, and then once it's dry we'll go on to the next stage. Now got to a point. I've applied 2 coats of spirit stain. Allowed to dry will help the drying process with the aid of a hot air gun, and I will lightly sand it back now with 400 grit. Put 1 more coat on, let that dry, then apply a spray acrylic sanding sealer, let that dry, and then finish off with wax. Now using chestnut acrylic sanding sealer, and from about 6 to 8 inches, with the lathe revolving at about 150 revs very slowly, apply a coat and let that dry, and then I'll lightly sand that back with 600 grit, apply another coat of the sanding sealer, let that dry completely, and then wax it. Okay, I've now applied 2 coats of wood wax 22. I'll give it a last buffing with a clean piece of paper towel. Obviously you have to be very careful here because you could snap the finial, and that's it. So you could call it a faux ebony finial, but it's quite effective. So all that remains to do now is to part him off. Okay. So there's the finished finial with the ebony effect. The tenon is 3/8 as I explained, and that'll fit into a 3/8 hole on a project at some future date. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's been of some use to you. And thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers now.